right, so today I'm just going to talk about our reality. Lori just told me that as of today, she was going over to the neighbor's house as we were packing up the last of stuff and getting ready to head out to North Carolina. And this is our official move date. We'll have to pick up some more stuff later, but we've moved all of our main house out of the house. This is moving day. We didn't plan it. I'll talk about that in just a second. But she goes to the neighbor's house, and Vicky, our neighbor, is just awesome about dates. She loves keeping dates about everyone, birth dates and dates that are important, and she always comes back around, wraps back around and says, do you remember this date or that date? She actually writes them on her calendar, and she goes, Lori, you've got to see this. I've written on my calendar. Do you realize if you're moving today, you're moving the exact date you closed on the house 3 years ago? That's crazy. Without even planning it, we literally are moving on the exact date, 3 years. It's exactly 3 years for us there in Thurmont. Now, Vicky didn't think about it, but she literally was blown away. So Lori turns around and says, you know, this is what happened. I started thinking about it, praying about it. I said, well, do you realize, as we're talking, do you realize that we moved on this date only because Dimbo Jones changed their merger date, which you guys saw the videos of the merger stuff I've just done, and they changed the merger date, so we had to change our date, which ended up being exactly today from where we were going to move before. And so I was frustrated before when we did it, until now when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wow, so Dimbo Jones and 714 had a part in it. So I called Daniel and told him that, and he's like, oh, that's so encouraging, bro, thanks for encouraging me. And I was like, you know, God has a divine time. It's beyond everything. He even planned the exact date of our move, and we didn't know it. He used our company, 714, which is set apart for God anyway, and Dimbo Jones, one of our clients, to inadvertently cause us to move exactly on the 3-year mark. Kicker is, when we moved into the house, God had me study about Elijah for literally a year and a half. I studied about Elijah. So I studied 1 Kings. I literally stayed in it. I repeated over and over. I studied about Elijah, Ahab, spirit of Jezebel, what transacted there, and just really prayed into it for a year and a half. I kept going over it and over it. I read other passages too, but my primary passage every day was that. And then God had me like a year and a half ago, so a year and a half on Elijah, and last year and a half on Moses and the Mosaic books and the first of the Bible. So Exodus all the way through Deuteronomy, which I'm currently doing. And the kicker is that as I spent time on Elijah, I just felt this kindred thing like a year and a half ago, in the middle of our 2 years ago, that God was taking us out of the rat race in DC and bringing us into the wilderness in Thurmont, and we were being fed by ravens. So we had this saying around the house as money came in that we would thank God for everything that came through. We made a thankfulness board, we pray over it, and every time money came through, it was God feeding us like He fed Elijah in the wilderness by ravens. Miraculously, we were fed by ravens. So we've been saying forever, we've been fed by ravens, we've been fed by ravens. Today, after thinking about the 3 years on the money thing, coming out of our wilderness, and the fed by ravens, it dawns on me, and this is just interesting. I'm not saying anything about it, I'm just saying it's interesting. Our client has a client, so our CPA firm that's our client, a large portion of their clients are in the ball team, Baltimore Ravens. So the merger I just did, part of the money came from the Ravens. Folks, as weird as it sounds, I've just been fed by the Ravens. And the Ravens kept us fed in our 3 years in the wilderness. Now we're coming out. And I feel like there's a time for us to present ourselves before the kings and the nations. And that we're to call fire down and see whose God is God. And we are committed to it. Daniel and I were talking. We're in our season. It's time to see whose God is God. Urgh!